Hey guys, welcome back. BDC Care here. We're back with our weekly recap of all things Injustice. This is for the week of February 16th, 2023. The current character challenge is Raven. That's a 1 week repeat, as it has been for a very long time now. The required characters are Wonder Woman, Nightwing, and The Flash, who you can get at Silver, Bronze, and Bronze, respectively, if you're looking at the lowest, sort of most accessible tier. And her passive is Demonic Rage, which is twice per match. When Raven is below 20% health, she swaps her health with her opponent, and then, in all caps, bosses are protected. She's got 1,050 attack and 1,000 health, and was last available on the 21st of April, 2022.
Okay, so Raven, or as the cool kids say, Raven Prime. So if you're new, because there's so many universes, that when they don't have a specific universe associated with them,
It's the Prime, it's the OG universe.
Yeah. As long as there's no other skin, because we don't say static Prime because there's no other statics, but there's plenty of Ravens. So she's got lower stats. She's still a great card though. And what's interesting historically is that she was one of the first who had a passive that affected the way we would approach the game. That your in-game strategy was different because of that. So, in other words, she was literally game-changing. I mean, that term gets used a lot. It's a bit of a cliche, but in her case, it was true. And despite not having great stats, I think her health swap passive makes her still relevant and super useful. She really shines in Survivor, and you can see her in the video we did a few years back on how to beat Survivor. The link is in the description. So, swapping health makes a huge difference when your opponent's health pool is much bigger than yours. And the key to taking advantage of her passive is making sure her health lands at some point between 0 and 20% in order to trigger it. Because it may not be obvious to people, but if you're at 21% health...
And then your next hit takes you down to 0.
Yeah.
Then it doesn't hit.
You're out. You're knocked out. She was one of the characters that didn't have a breakthrough for ages. I mean, it feels so long ago, but there was a time, more than a year, I think, that she just wasn't in the breakthrough cycle.
Yeah.
And the fact that you can make her Elite 60 or Elite 10 level 60 now makes up for any kind of perceived deficiency in her stats.
Yeah, as long as you're not trying to get every single one of your characters totally maxed out in terms of stats as soon as you can, then you can bring her definitely up to par.
Right. She was one of the earliest gold cards to have multiple combo ender hits to take advantage of combo ender abilities on gears. And again, more history. She did not used to have that limitation against boss cards. Her passive would work against everybody.
Yeah.
And that was a nerf. Well, considering how powerful she was, I guess that's not entirely a nerf. But it's funny that one of the cards where it scales up that lets you hit above your weight class, they would have nerfed it in the one place where you'd really want it to work.
Yeah, and one of the main spots, right? Because the thing is that you still need to beat those bosses to sort of progress in single player.
Yeah.
In single player where you're outclassed is one of the places that you'd really want most to use her.
Right. And originally, when I wrote this, I was saying that she's harder to use outside of Survivor when your overall roster gets better, but I think it's not true. It's harder to use her passive, to take advantage of her passive outside of Survivor, but she's still pretty good. So here's the thing. We were talking about this in our Q&A just a few days ago, that I've been a little bit anchored in the idea because her health swap used to be so ridiculously game-changing.
Yeah, that you feel like that's the one thing about her.
Right. So if you're going to take advantage of it, you want to do the health swap when the opponent's health is high. If their health is low, that's not much of an advantage, right? If you're swapping 21% for 19%.
Yeah.
Right? Doesn't mean much. So if you're using the rest of your team for your main damage output, by the time Raven's passive triggers, actually, even if you're using her for your main damage output, by the time her passive triggers, you're not getting back a lot of health. So if you're using her health to take down the entire other team, the time it takes to get her health drop, it's usually not worth it because you're wasting more time than you would have if you just gone all balls to the wall, huge damage output, right? And that's the reason why it's so much better in Survivor. The later fight opponents have a huge amount of health. The swap is in percentages, so you can reduce the opponent to less than 20% health while picking up maybe 100% if you haven't done any damage to them.
And also, if they're outclassing you in stats, they can wear your health down pretty fast.
Right.
It's not like a very long process to have that. Your main risk is, overshooting and not hitting the swap before you're getting knocked out.
So in the footage that you're watching with Raven, you can see we're not even going to try to use her passive, or we're not strategizing around it. We'll use it if we need to. Like the perfect time is when we're facing another Raven and it just uses up all of their passives.
Yeah.
But the thing is, her special 2 does a decent amount of damage. It's not really any different than other characters where we don't try to play to their passive, but the character has to be good in other ways to make up for it. And in Raven's case, in Raven Prime's case, her special 2 is multi-hit. It can knock out more than one opponent. And it's the key to me, what really makes it special is that it's ranged enough. So if they're like a huge distance away, it can totally whiff. But the shove that comes from Master's Death card is not enough to push them out of range. So even though she's not close enough for like some specials that would need to, like I think her special 1 is not ranged at all. Yeah. But if you're using Master's Death card and you do your special 2, you just drop in. You don't have to wait till you get closer.
Yeah. You can afford to be a little less careful.
Yeah. And you drop it and every hit counts.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think you can really overlook that. And you can see in the gameplay right now, she actually really is pretty effective without having to play to her passive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the 143rd week of a repeating pattern that started in May of 2020. That's 3 complete runs of a 43-week cycle and then 14 weeks into the 4th cycle. Next week should be Earth 2 Solomon Grundy. And that 43-week cycle has 23 challenge characters that are missing from it, that were available at one point, sort of when they were first round. And then sometimes even sort of randomly popping back up. But then when the cycles happened, a bunch got sort of left out.
Right.
This week's multiplayer reward is Suicide Squad Joker Unhinged. His passive is Unhinged, which is the Joker can't wait to show you his toys. A powerful random effect will occur on his special 1, and after Joker defeats an opponent team member, he drives them insane and they will fight for you with reduced health. Can be triggered twice if using a team of 3 Suicide Squad characters. He's got 1,400 attack and 1,300 health. This one was last available on the 14th of July 2022. It's 111 weeks of this pattern, which is 3 cycles of 31 rewards and 18 weeks into our 4th cycle. In this cycle, unlike the challenge characters, has nothing missing, with next week being the overpowered super.
Right. So those are really high stats.
Yeah.
And despite that, this is worse than if he just had no passive.
Yeah.
I still think of, remember Kano in Mortal Kombat, where his passive was that he was cheap?
Yeah, and that he was purchasable with their sort of non-gold currency.
Yeah, I think they introduced that much later. I think it was just that he was cheap.
Oh yeah, never mind.
Yeah. His passive, all right, so I'm going to sort of half ignore the first part. The random effect on special 1, it doesn't feel like a real passive. It feels like just a special 1.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it's slightly better because you don't have like the damage reduction.
Is it? I
actually haven't run those numbers.
I gotta take a look at those numbers after.
Even if that's the case, special 1s are never start of the show without like something special like Batgirls, right? Where they're like stunning you.
And then you're doing stuff with gears and you have to sort of make it up yourself. So he is bad for fighting. It doesn't matter who you're fighting. You will, I mean, with the high stats, you will eventually win. But you have to waste so much time against opponents that are weaker. Yeah. So, all right, here's the thing. So when a card is driven insane, as it says in the passive, it has the character that you're taking over has no passive and no gear effects. You get 1/3 of the health, so that's not awful because that means they can get knocked out faster, which I don't mind.
Yeah.
Because, all right, so when you're playing against weaker cards, it slows down farming because if you're using Joker, you temporarily replace him with somebody who's not as good.
Yeah.
Unless you literally have no gears anyways. Well, actually, even then, because you're still working with whatever the stats of the other character is.
Yeah, it's like kind of like Injustice. Is it Injustice 2 Aquaman Special 2? Which one is the one that summons somebody?
Oh, no, it's Aquaman. It's one of Aquaman.
Yeah.
Maybe Aquaman Prime?
Is it Prime? I thought it was Injustice 2. I didn't know.
No, Injustice 2 reflects...
No, that's true. Okay,
versus,
yeah, but anyways, where it's not very good. It just slows down the fight.
Right, so then you've got a card now that has lower stats than Joker, and so you just have to take enough damage, or I guess when you get a chance to swap out again. So decreased damage output always equals a slower fight, and it gives your opponent time to build up some power.
Mm-hmm.
If you're fighting against more powerful opponents, if you time it perfectly so that someone else does all the work, but Unhinged gets the knockout, then he could be useful, because then you're working with a character that's got way more damage.
Yeah.
But it really requires playing very carefully, and the more difficult survivor fights are the ones where you have control. You no longer have control over swapping, and then you can't play this scenario anyways. The special one effects, they're poison, power drain, power gain, and life drain. Yeah, and I'm not a big fan of randomness. I would prefer even Harley Quinn's, where it cycles through too quickly on her special 2. I prefer that, because at least you have some control.
Yeah, because with stuff like, power drain, life drain, poison. I think power gain is always a little bit more useful, but with the other ones, when they're useful, pretty situational.
Yeah.
And if you can't rely on them, if you can't rely on a power drain happening, then it's way less useful than, somebody like Nightwing, for example, where your special one, you can reliably drain power. You can incorporate that into strategy.
Right.
Where with the random effects, you kind of just have to hope that it's going to be useful to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So moving on to the store, we have the Earth 2 Solomon Grundy pack for $24.99. These prices are all in Canadian, as always. That's where we are, so that's the numbers that we got. And it's a clue to next week's challenge. It doesn't include any credits, and it doesn't unlock in the store. So this is the more expensive sort of version of the pack when there's a character pack. But instead of including 100,000 credits like it normally does, it just doesn't have anything. So this is like a terrible, terrible deal. Because next week, you're going to be able to sort of save $25 just by completing the challenge.
Right.
Yeah. We also have the character bundle Suicide Squad. That's also $24.99 Canadian. It's been that price for a while, way back in 2020. In December of 2020, it was $18.99, so it's gone up from then, but it's been that price for years at this point. And that comes with Suicide Squad, Harley Quinn, and Suicide Squad, the Joker.
The good Joker.
Yeah, and then 2 random gears out of 5. So you get the 5 is the 3 Suicide Squad companion gears, and then there are 2 signature gears, Harley Quinn and Joker's.
But they make it so the signature gears, which you could normally get in the gear locker, much more likely. So they are each 35% chance, and the Suicide Squad companion gears collectively are only 30% total, so it's only 10% each. Those are the ones that you'd actually want that would potentially make this not worth it, but just more worth it.
Yeah. There we go. We also have the Sorcery Pack 1, which is around for its second week. This is $25, and like we mentioned last week, it comes with Zatanna, Raven, and Kondak Black Adam.
So the other packs that have been lingering around for a while, we got the character bundle Batman Universe 63rd week, Most Wanted pack 70th week, and the Celebration the packs, the ones that cost 300 nth metal. We've got Aquaman for 57 weeks now, and the Shazam and Joker packs for 55 weeks.
Dang. Yeah. And so Phantom Zone is back for 2 weeks. Fight 62 is still broken, still not doable. We have bonus XP for 3 days.
Yep.
So that's kind of cool.
Yep.
Last weekend's breakthrough for gold was Sinestro, Green Arrow, and Scorpion. So this weekend's should be the Joker, Nightwing, and Darkseid. And there's a link in the description to a Reddit thread from Devlin16 that goes over the complete breakthrough cycle if you're looking for that yourself.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And this, in the old days, this is where we would start talking about the glitches. And so as far as current glitches goes, we don't do it every week anymore. We go into more detail every time something significant changes, which did not happen this week. But even when nothing changes, we still do a more detailed review once a month. It's the first week of every month. And most recently, that was our recap from February the 2nd. So 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And so, if again, those recaps that we used to do weekly, they were more highlights than they were tutorials. The tutorial for each glitch, every working glitch, is in our playlist, Current Glitches, linked in the description of this video. And the main thing worth mentioning is that the challenge reset glitch has been confirmed to be working on this week's Raven challenge.
Yeah, as well as the Phantom Zone glitch. And, doing one does both. So don't accidentally reset your progress. This is a perfect time to hammer it home and remind you that you might, if you're not careful, reset your progress on your Phantom Zone crystal or your challenge when you're just trying to reset one.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So there you go. So to finish up, we'd like to give a huge thank you to all the lovely folks who support us on Patreon. That's Corey Ashcraft at the highest last word tier, as well as Michael DeVries, Irvin Ruiz, Hoshi127, and Drew Chapman supporting us on the credited level, as well as the lovely list of names that you should be seeing right about now who have supported us at some point during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for your support, and thanks so much to all of you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Komoda.